Hi everybody, it's Dave from Wing Chun Mind Force. This week I'm just trying a new experimental way to get an idea across, and I think you'll enjoy it. I'm going to show you a bit about the human anatomy, and I'm going to draw a few things for you. So what you're seeing now is the skeleton of the trunk. It's basically a person looking from the side. If you have a look at the back of the person's skull, see this area is where the spinal cord comes up and runs into the brain there. So this is basically the area that seems to be the Nim Dao, the mind that we're trying to switch on, that we are switching on, what can be also called the subconscious mind, that's in that area. And you can see that the spinal cord runs up into it. And interesting thing is the spinal cord material is pretty much the same as the brain material, and it has white and grey matter in it in the spinal cord, and it runs down right through the body to the rear of the hips into this area here. This is called the sacrum here, the back of the hips. That's the hips area there. And at the end here we have what's called the coccyx. I'll just clear that off. Interesting point that our legs start from a ball and socket joint just here, and this shape's called the greater trochanter, and it's basically the end of this big femur bone here, and it fits into a socket. So essentially this floating torso is the idea that I want to promote, the idea that you just forget about your legs and you float on your torso. So let's have a look at this. This is just a bit more detail. Just here's the socket that your leg bones fit into. And once again, there's your coccyx there. And there's the sacrum, which is the end of the spine. And your spine's heading up that way from inside and out of there. Now, this coccyx is often spoken of as turning under the body. And that's not a bad idea. It's a mental idea, the same as the pinching of the butthole. What's called TAI GONG is a feeling of closing up the bottom of your body and making a link between that bottom of your body, literally, up your spine to the top of your head, to that rear brain. So this is a rear view of your hips, and once again you can see that's what's called the sacrum there, that bone, and you can see these holes, great big nerves come out of there, run into your legs and your buttocks. Down here there's the coccyx. So what I want to talk about now is this section, interesting section. This is the little platform that your first vertebrae goes onto there, and you can see it's quite flat. Now, just going to the next image. This is the front view. This is the pubic area here, the pubic bone. These bones under here are where you sit. So if you didn't have them, your bum would just be like a flat rubbery cushion, but it has those bones in it, and my yoga teacher calls them the sit bones, which is sort of quite a reasonable thing to call them. And you can see the little coccyx in there, and once again there's the sacrum. There's this I'm interested in, this flat platform here. So this is where the whole weight of your torso is taken, and you can see it's sort of like a ledge, It's a solid looking thing, looks like it'll land a little helicopter on there. The hip, this is a 3D cavity, okay, so that whole space holds all your bowels and all your innards. And if I was to draw my concept of a bowl, imagine a bowl shape in there, and that bowl is floating. Make it a bit bigger there. Imagine this bowl shape floating in water. So here's the water. Outside, that your pelvis is floating on. Okay. So that's the basic concept. Getting back to the red. So I sort of imagine like a stone bowl or a bone bowl. And it's floating on the water. Now, inside there is where your anus is, you know, your bunghole. It's a tube, and we don't, you probably know this, but we don't literally pinch it. That's how I was taught when we first started, to sort of pinch it. It was more to get your mind to that point where you could feel it, and you could locate it in space, but you don't really need to pinch it to do Tai Gong. You're aware of that area and you sort of mentally seal it so that the water doesn't get in. The water's what you're floating on. I guess more you don't want the chi to get out. I think that's the original idea, but this idea of floating is more to get you feeling this feeling of effortless standing. I don't believe in a stance. I of course follow Sigung's teaching about the way we stand in Sil Nim Dao to practice it. There's a real point to that, to help your mind focus forward. But really, in all your Wing Chun, you don't want to be thinking about your legs. You want to be floating, so your torso's just bobbing away on the water like this bowl, and it's holding up the spine, which goes on top of this. So it all sort of sits up there. I'll do a better drawing in a second. All right, so here's the spine. Now your spine's quite a interesting thing. On the left-hand side, it looks straight, doesn't it? Sort of that's it's a rear view, and on the right you've got sort of a from the front view, so you can see it's naturally pretty straight. I'll draw a straight line there. But when you look at that centre drawing of the spine, you see the spine's a double S, so it curves around like this. Okay, that's what we call a double S. And it's essentially the body's pointing that way. You can see the coccyx down there, and if I just pull back a little bit, if I was going to draw a head, the head would be here. So that's the spinal cord comes up into the rear brain. So that's where you're going to get your Nim Dao happening there. Yeah, that's what I want, a bit of red. So that's where all the amazing subconscious power and energy is coming from. There, the back of the head. So, just to quickly reiterate, we have a little black. Alright, so my concept is you got this stone bowl, or a ball, You can actually think of it as a ball. So I just sort of do it like that. It's a ball shape. But I sort of like the idea of thinking of it as a bowl because it's more like how the actual thing is. It's all shaped like that, and there's the front there, and there's a coccyx at the back, but that's is the butthole there. So I'll just back off from that. So there it is. It's floating on water in your mind. You imagine that it just releases you, and it's the most important thing. Besides just this concept of floating and not having any legs, is that easy, natural turning that comes, and this is where this really comes into its own with Bill G and Chum Q, that you're just floating, you're turning around a centre line. Now, the actual centre line would drop down, straight down here. So that's the actual centre line. But your spine, as I just said, it's a double S, and it comes up like that. And it's thicker at the bottom. I didn't mention that actually. Let's have a quick look. You'll see that it's the bones are thicker at the bottom, and they get smaller as it goes up. So reducing the weight till up near the neck. This is the neck, the seventh cervical vertebrae. They're quite fine, but that's holding up the weight of the head. These ones down below here, these are all holding up the whole chest and the arms and the weight of the head. And then finally, the lower ones are the biggest and thickest because they're holding up the whole thing. They're basically taking the weight from the legs, from the ground. So that's really, what you're sort of balancing on. So getting back to this. So here's your bowl floating on the water. And then there's that first spinal block where the first vertebrae sits on. And then I just imagine you've got these balls of water. A ball of water. Put a nice black little line around it. See it? So that's a ball of water, and here's the vertebrae sitting on top of it. Okay, and then you've got another ball of water, another vertebrae, another ball of water, so you guys are all smart guys. You realise that what I'm talking about is a concept. You don't actually have little balls of water, but what you have is synovial fluid, and it's slippery and it floats your bones. It actually does lift up, and I suspect that when we super relax, when we really feng sung, and when the Nim Tao really kicks in and you get Nim Lik, the mind force happening, they expands, and perhaps the fluid itself expands, but something really expands. You feel it, and so it's sort of pretty obvious that if you're just thinking about floating balls, it's effortless. They just turn with the breeze virtually, and so that's the concept. And as I said, there's the centre line there. Sorry, I always say I can't draw a straight line, but a straight line's actually one of the hardest things to draw. So that's your centre there, dropping down the middle. But as you're thinking about your spine, you can think about these balls effortlessly turning, and you'll find that'll work really well for you. So let me know in the comments what you think of the way I've shown this. I've got lots of concepts that I'd like to to show in a way with drawing that I think will make it clearer. So there you go. So I'll leave you with that. There it is. And enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll see you soon. Bye.